Voiceover Coffee Shop, Episode 12.
Welcome to the Voiceover Coffee Shop, where we share our morning with some of the finest names in voiceover. And now, here's your host, voice actor Andrew Morrison.
Hi there. My name is Andrew Morrison, and welcome to the Voiceover Coffee Shop, where we start our day with some of the finest names in voiceover. If you'd like to know more about me, feel free to visit my personal website at www.voicebard.com. In this episode, we have coffee with my dear friend, Uncle Roy Yokelson. Uncle Roy is founder of Antland Productions, where his specialty is voiceover support services, including coaching, killer demo production, home studio solutions, and recording technology education. In this episode, we talk about how to make a demo stand out and stay competitive on a roster. How did Uncle Roy begin in audio design? And why is he called Uncle Roy? As well as his process for making killer demos. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Very small amount of actual voice actor. That's not my passion. My passion is helping you get your sound shiny.
Right.
And a faster workflow.
Right. How do you take your coffee, Uncle Roy?
I'm lactose intolerant, so it's either almond milk or what we used to call cremora, non-dairy creamer.
Okay.
I make a blend of just regular and then combination either hazelnut vanilla, or if my girlfriend is here, then pumpkin spice. She's also got some coconut. These are interesting facts about coffee and Uncle Roy.
So how did you get started in audio production? Was it with East Lake Music or was it before that?
Well, do you want, like when I was 2, I had a record player that played the same record over and over. It drove my father crazy, and his friend said, well, put in a headphone jack. So, I had a record player with headphones, which today a 2-year-old has headphones. They probably have Bluetooth headphones and everything. But back when I was 2, it wasn't the norm. And then I was just fascinated with sound as a kid, and he gave me a tape recorder, and I was the kid on the block with the puppet stage in my basement, and we pre-recorded the dialogue. We didn't know that's the way you're supposed to do it. We just did it. And I still have those tapes. And, in high school, was on the AV squad, and I did sound and lighting for the school shows, and I recorded them audio because video wasn't happening back then. Mm-hmm. And this was just a passion, and there was no Institute of Audio Research, and nobody said, oh, you could make money being a recording engineer or a director. There was nobody to guide me except my passion. So I had gone to electronics school, RCA institutes, to become an electronic technician because that seemed like it was related while recording my dopey band, the Antland Band. Trying to make good sound was always my passion. So I got a job. So I was the best messenger they had. I was the best head of shipping they ever had. I was the best assistant. I just wanted to sit in that chair. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to be the guy. And we were doing jingle sessions back in the day. This was the middle to the end of the jingle era. So I was the engineer on My Little Pony and Transformers and G.I. Joe. It's like 1983. And then I got involved in film score recording, as you were alluding to with Dick Hyman, East Lake. We got hired to do Zelig, which anybody who's seen it and heard it, it's a fake documentary about a guy who they call the human chameleon because he wants to fit in. So if he's with a bunch of doctors, he becomes a doctor. If he's with a bunch of Chinese people, he becomes Chinese. The human chameleon. So my job was to make it sound like 1928. And and it's scary. And I wasn't even 30 years old, and where do you go from there? Like, that was the, and I got to record the real Betty Boop, Mae Questel. There was a Betty Boop song in there, and maybe she was 75 years old. Sounded great. And I've kept almost everything I've ever recorded in my life is right here on the hard drive. You can access it at any point.
So, your band Antland, is that what you named Antland Studios after?
It goes back to high school. Some friends were getting high, and one said to the other one, "You look like an ant." Bug. An auntie this and auntie that, and a character named Uncle Auntie came out of it. So I became the Uncle Auntie guy, the character. And then we had the Antland Band. The guy with the van, he was Antland Van Lines. And I was Antland Recording Studios and Antland Productions. And nobody else was doing anything with it. This was just, I had my basement in my parents' house, and I had a 4-track TAC, with reel-to-reel tape, and we recorded our demos and mixed it and everything. As a matter of fact, they presented me with a gold record that I have hanging up outside, but they took like a Reader's Digest record, and they sprayed it gold, and they mounted it to a piece of wood and put a plaque on it and a macrame. And we were playing that demo for our friends for the first time, and then they pulled out this thing. It was almost as good as getting one of these other ones back here, these Emmys and things,
Right. So with music production, what are some of the biggest differences between recording, say, music vocals and voiceover vocals?
When I learned about recording voiceover vocals was during these jingle sessions. The band would come in and singers would come in, and then there was what they call a donut, which is the singers would sing, then there's room for the announcer, and then the singers would sing. So the voiceover was just another instrument. So I learned how to process compressor and EQ and whatever. It was all hardware, just like over here. There were no plugins. There was no computers. This was all, ear to brain to hand coordination. It goes through a vocal strip, then it goes into the computer, and then I do my post-processing in the computer. And I don't know, somehow those killer demos come out. Or music or whatever. When I do record vocals for songs, I do go through and clean up in a similar way that I would do a voiceover. I go through and declick, and I don't take the breaths out. I might soften them. Because in a song you need to know the singer's alive and breathing.
Right.
I mean, I hate those songs that are overly compressed and it pulls up those loud breaths. It's like, doesn't your ear tell you to do something different, like maybe reduce the breaths? We can do that now. We can go in and highlight and press buttons to reduce. So I make them clean, and we have lots of different reverb units and automatic double tracking like Abbey Road used to have on the Beatles records. I have bought a lot of those kind of plugins. I don't get enough music production jobs these days. My stepson is due for we're due to do a project soon, I hope. So we'll see.
So how did you get tied in with Wovo?
Well, it's a professional voiceover organization. I joined and then was asked, I guess, by Dan Leonard, would I be on the technical advisor board, because people send in their demos, or not their demos, their home studio sample, and then we give them a pass or fail you know, there's too much, it's too live, you know, it's too reverberant, it's too processed, or it's got sibilance, or you're too close to the mic, it's got proximity. And so we try to mentor and just educate. I like to teach. I like to teach about what I do. When you come to my barbecue, I don't want to talk shop, but when we're working,
Right.
I like to teach as much as I can.
So building in the voiceover industry, as an audio engineer on that side of things, what do you believe are some of the biggest resources that have kind of helped you along this path?
You mean like tools?
Yeah, whether they be physical tools, mental tools, community tools. What were those biggest tools for you?
Been using Adobe Audition since it was cool at 96, and that was my first digital anything. Because before that it was razor blades and
A grease pencil, right?
slicing. No, I never used pencil. I used a Mr. Peanut mechanical pencil because it gave a very fine line, and a grease pencil's fat. And not only that, it's going to wrap to the next, if there's a grease pencil still on there, it's going to wrap to the next layer and leave grease on there, is my theory anyway. I never used a grease pencil, but so making the transition from analog full-time, because this was at home, Adobe Audition. In the studio, we were still multi-track on tape, and even if it was digital, it was still on tape. And then they bought me, I was at Howie Schwartz recording studio, and he came in and said, "So what do you think we should get for your room to bring it up quality-wise?" And I said, "Well, you can get me one of those SSL screen sounds that are $100,000. So he did. Sitting in my garage right now. You can't get $500 for it. So this was a tablet and a wireless pen.
Okay.
So just being able to make edits, it had no processing in it. You had to get it right going into the box.
Mm-hmm.
EQ and compression, all that. It had nothing. So you could do edits. You could automate the volume and panning, and that's it. So finally, you know, every time it was time for a job, I would think, do I really need the computer on this one? I mean, that's probably going to slow me down. We're so fast with quarter-inch tape and multi-track, and we were really fast on old technology. And of course, every job was appropriate for the computer. So until I finally gave it up and said, okay, fine. So that transition was a big deal. And then all the toys, all the RX-8, you know, all the mouth declickers and the de-essers and all the tools that I used every day, compression and reverb and everything. So just the fact that it's right there in the box, you know, that $100,000 box doesn't do as much as what free Audacity can do, and certainly Adobe Audition. So,
right.
Boy, we've come a long way in the
right. So you produce a lot of demos. What do you think are some of the determining factors that help a voiceover artist when producing their demo to be more competitive?
If I were doing your demo, I would interview you and you would tell me about your three-legged cat and everything, and then we'd write a spot, you know, Dottie Pearl Snake Eyes, the best three-legged cat in the universe, you know, eats Purina, whatever, you know. So it would be, I write about your stuff. You tell me all your wacky about your life, and then I write scripts that have to do with those topics. So it's not out of a bag full of practice scripts or anything like that. It's very personal. Mm-hmm. Then I think I'm a good director. I've been co-directing with other coaches these days. I have access to the entire Warner Chappell music library, so I never have used the same piece twice. It's not like I bought 20 CDs and that's all I've got. I have unlimited, and every month more really cool music comes out. So, and that's where I take most of my time, you know, writing the scripts, directing. I prefer if somebody comes here because I've got 24 mics. And so for every script, I'll change microphones just so sonically things are a little different. And then the music search, you know, plus if people come here, besides going to lunch at Rutt's Hut or whatever, I make all the, if you're here, I make all the edits and I lay it all out and we make sure that we're hearing enough range, or if we have to re-record anything, we're right here. I do plenty of them remotely, but then I wind up with all the takes. And even though I take good notes, I've got to make the edits after the fact.
Right.
You know? So it's having good scripts, good direction, good stock music selection. And because my job before all of this was to produce and engineer radio and TV spots and promos, I did in-demand pay-per-view promos every month for years. So I know how that's supposed to sound because I produced the stuff that aired, you know, even though maybe things have, voiceover styles have changed a little bit. That doesn't matter. Technology wise, you know, I know how to do all that because that's what I did.
Right.
Right. And not over processed.
Right.
I don't want to hear over processed demos like some people make. It's okay. That's all right.
So what do you think some of the biggest misconceptions of audio work are? And what do you think some of the biggest mistakes that you receive on your end, like the biggest issues with people's audio when they come on your side, other than the compression?
Well, when people send me their sample, a lot of times it's the levels are puny. I said, you have to turn up the gain on your interface. Yeah, but when I turn it up, the noise comes up. Everything has to, it comes up by the same amount. Whether you normalize it later or we reach for it now, I would rather reach for it now. Yes, your noise is coming up. Let's fix the noise. and let's get a good recording level. In the old days, yes, you wanted to get a good recording level because we were trying to beat tape hiss. So you'd put a lot of level and you wouldn't have to crank it up and you wouldn't hear hiss. That's not what we're doing now. We want to use all the zeros and ones in the digital world. So you need a healthy recording level so that we don't have to rely on normalizing and all those things. Okay.
So if you were to write a letter to yourself before you began in audio, what would that letter say?
I'm writing to myself when I was a messenger. I guess I would have to say, and I knew I was driven. My father had said to me, so what, are you going to give it like 3 months? I said, no, this is what I want. This is my career. So I would say to myself, you know, you can do this. That's why my mentor taught me as well as he did, because he saw that I would be good at this. So it's the old follow your passion. If you can do this, you know, obviously I had to grow and develop and be able to do more and better work. So find a good mentor, which I did, or he found me, or it just happened, and just keep going after that passion. And I did. That's why I'm sitting here. That's why we're talking, because I saw my little dream, Johnny's dream trip to Hollywood of the puppet shows, you know, and nobody, that's the thing, nobody helped me. There was no career guidance. Nobody said you could be a director, you could be a recording engineer, you could produce, you know, whatever. I didn't know the careers even existed, you know. I just pulled all the pieces, all my passions. You know, we're all frustrated actors, so,
right,
you know, and I love that people like Everett, people like J. Michael, you know, that all of the big wigs the big machas, as my girlfriend would say, that these are my friends and colleagues, and we have a lot to give and teach and learn from each other. And, you know, if we're not having fun, you know, what's the point? We have to have fun.
I hope you enjoyed listening to how Uncle Roy went from becoming a messenger boy to being recognized industry-wide for his killer audio work, as well as how he has educated the next generation of voiceover talent to wear the shoes of brilliance. If you'd like to know more about Uncle Roy, you can visit him at www.antlandproductions.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Voiceover Coffee Shop. For more information on guests, new episodes, and more, be sure to visit www.vocoffeeshop.com.